Thank you, everyone. Well, thank you to the panelists for joining us here today. I can tell the wine is probably starting to flow, or the beer, and we're ready for that too. So if anyone would be so kind as to bring us a bottle and a couple of glasses, we would love that. But we're here to talk about women and inclusion and diversity in tech today, which is a topic that I think is near and dear to all of our hearts, but I think also at H2O, where I'm from, H2O.ai, Shri Ambati, our CEO, who you saw earlier today, this is very important to him. So you'll see a number of us here from H2O.ai, Erin, LeDell, and Niki, there at the end, who represent us. And we have one of our great partners here, Meg from Intel. We've got Josie, who's a student that I met a couple of months ago now, and Shar, who I also met a couple of months ago. And I said, join me in this panel. So what we really wanted to discuss today is, first of all, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves and talk about what you each do. And then we're going to talk about some of the tough questions, and we want to open it up to the audience as well to, help you get more insights into this topic, because it's not just a hashtag Me Too thing or, we're mad. No, we want to solve the problem. We're in machine learning and AI. We want to solve problems. So with that, again, I'm Ingrid Burton. I'm the CMO at H2O.ai. I've been in the tech business for decades and have been both a developer and now a marketeer. So I was a developer very early in my career, now a marketeer, and do marketing around tech companies of all shapes and sizes. So H2O is my favorite so far, but I worked at Sun and Hortonworks, SAP, the list goes on. So I'm here to help have the discussion, and Shar, I'll turn it over to you, a little bit about you.
Thank you, Ingrid. First of all, thank you for H2O for inviting me to participate in this great event. So I am Shar Rubio, and I'm currently leading the portfolio management and project assurance group at Rabobank, North America, which is in New York City. So Rabobank does not rob banks. I have to be very careful when I say that. It is actually a Dutch bank, and it specializes in providing capital to the food, beverage, and agri-finance industries. And my awesome team and I are responsible for providing governance to all of the projects in our North America project portfolio, and we provide analytics and insight to our C-suite to help facilitate decision-making. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Josie.
That's a tough act to follow, but I'm Josie. I'm a recent computer science graduate from NYU, and right now I'm looking for positions in researching and fellowships, but to keep my hands busy, I'm working with a team at the NYU Medical Center where we're implementing machine learning into healthcare with the hope of detecting renal failure and kidney disease 2 to 3 years in advance. So that's where I am.
So are you looking for a job?
Yes, I would like to everyone to keep that in mind.
A recent NYU grad. Erin.
Hi, my name's Erin LeDell. I'm the Chief Machine Learning Scientist at H2O.ai. I've been there for about 4.5 years now, but I've known Sri since, I think, 2013. And yeah, one of the first things I noticed about him was he's one of the sort of few CEOs that I met that was quite aware of the diversity, let's call it, I don't know, issue? Maybe that's
gap?
Not the right, yeah, gap, that's a better
Gap.
word, thank you. I've always felt quite comfortable at H2O, and I think it's nice to be a part of this panel. And at H2O, what I do is I manage the H2O AutoML team, and I gave a talk about that earlier if you want to learn more later, and that's about it.
And you also lead Our Women, and why don't you talk a little bit about your communities?
Yeah, okay. I didn't want to monopolize the time, but I'll mention 2 other things that I do related to this topic of diversity inclusion. So there's 2 nonprofits that I help run. One is called Women in Machine Learning and Data Science Organization, or WIMLDS is the acronym, WIMLDS.org, and we have about almost, I think, 80 chapters worldwide that are just sort of like meetup groups that form local communities to help support growing people, or specifically women's careers in machine learning and data science. And the other is called R Ladies. So maybe if you've heard of Pi Ladies, it's the R version of that. So same idea, but just sort of more focused on a particular programming language, my favorite of which is R. So
Perfect.
Great. Thank you so much, Ingrid and Shri, for having us back here. I'm with Intel. I'm Meg Moudet. I've been with Intel 4.5 years. I'm an informatician by education, so I started in genetics and computational applications for genomics. That was some time ago. My passion is around data diversity and algorithmic diversity, and has been for quite some time, even before Intel. So when we're looking at language, image, other classification systems, machine learning systems, having a good representative perspective on that is important, and having well-engineered systems is important on that. So my day job is to do design in, design for systems for Intel's Tier 1 customers that use our specialized computing, AI, machine learning platforms. But that's what I'm passionate around. And one quick plug, I also do, like a lot of the other ladies here, volunteer work, and my area of passion is economic diversity, not just ethnic or gender, but economic. So I mentor young men and women doing work, giving them a engineering leg. Yeah, so I spend a lot of time doing that. Just came back from Grace Hopper, so if you went to Grace Hopper and didn't say hi, say hi.
Fantastic. Thank you. Niki?
Hi, everyone. My name is Niki Athanasiadou. I'm a data scientist at H2O AI. I'm working with customers to help work together to solve problems. At the same time, I'm working on various aspects of like different recipes. I have a passion for healthcare and adoption of machine learning by healthcare. My love affair with data science started during my PhD. Actually, I have a PhD in computational molecular biology. And in the beginning, I thought I loved biology. Then I realized I love data and information. And that's, here we are now.
So this is a really great panel. I mean, you guys all have technical backgrounds. I believe you mentioned that. Technical backgrounds, and now you're in AI and machine learning for the most part, and you're very new in your career. So what advice, let me see, who can I pick on? Erin, what advice would you give Josie about how she's going about getting to the next step in her career? She's a recent grad, she's at this great event. What are your breakthrough moments that you could share with someone like Josie?
Josie is a little ahead of the curve. She's on a panel at a big conference and had just graduated from school. So I don't know that Josie needs to hear it, but for the rest of the audience, I'll share some tips. I think communities are important. I mean, that's why I work on these different types of communities. I think it's good to have networks, especially if you're looking for a job. I think it's good to, just put yourself out there, jump on a panel and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. That's also helpful.
So being direct.
Yeah, being
something
direct
that we have to work on,
can
right?
Be helpful.
Be direct.
I would say I don't want to sort of go in that direction too much, because I think women get a lot of pressure to conform to sort of male behavior and stereotypes. So I want to, that might be helpful, but also sort of honor the way that, maybe we do things a little differently, or, something like that. So don't necessarily, try to be somebody that you're not, but try to play to your strengths and stuff like that. So maybe I'll let somebody else have a chance to give some advice.
Yeah, and I was going to ask Niki, just in terms of, like, you're in machine learning and AI, and you're working with a lot of our customers in healthcare. And what is the importance, I mean, I think I know the answer, but the diversity angle when you're working in that kind of environment, like, you bring what kind of different perspective, or is it just purely the math and the machine learning?
So I think I will offer two answers, because I think there are different ways to see it. One is providing answers through data, and I think that's absolute, and there are methodologies and approaches, and that's genderless, raceless, and something that I feel to do it, I think that to do it well, you need to love it and to have passion to do it well. And then I think what's important is to, however, allow for many voices to speak towards the truth of your model, the truth of your data, problems from your data, and that can come from by having many different backgrounds talking on the table. It's about, I think, and as I was preparing about this panel, I was thinking, what is the most important thing that perhaps is worth mentioning here? Is about that no one is immune from prejudice. It's no one is immune from biases. We all do it. I challenge you to take the sexism questionnaire online. You would be surprised. I think that what is important is to recognize the limitation of our point of view and to allow people to fill in the gaps. And that's where diversity, I think, is important.
That's very important. Megan, I'm sure you have a perspective on that too, working with a lot of customers. What do you see in terms of machine learning, AI, and your perspectives?
Yeah, great question. I think from an AI perspective and machine learning perspective, independent of whether you're a man or a woman, I think, first of all, obviously, as Niki mentioned, and rightly so, I always get the twirly chair, the fourth. I think what's really important to consider certainly is, yes, in terms of demographic diversity and knowledge diversity and neurodiversity, but I also would like to suggest that we look at methods diversity. For example, how we're sourcing data assets or what algorithms we're using, how we're mapping the behavior of the model back into the production systems. And I think that portion is a little bit more nuanced, and I think there's going to be tremendous opportunity there. And if you can bring any domain area, for instance, your passion is healthcare, or your passion is environmental applications, whatever, bringing that other knowledge and perspective, even of yourself, and enriching that is tremendous. Shar mentioned at Rabobank, they do a lot of work with food, beverage, agriculture companies. That's a specialized domain unto itself, not just with machine learning, but a whole industry and how the data itself is propagated. So I think there's those two perspectives.
And sitting at a customer site, to Meg's point, like where do you see diversity helping with solving problems? Do you see that?
Absolutely. It is you cannot not include it. I think in the marketplace, customers are very eager to see products and services delivered by companies that truly embrace diversity, including all of their preferences, right down to the UI, the way it's delivered, etc. So I think if you don't include it in your product and services strategy, there's no way you will survive the marketplace.
And that's been your experience, not just at Rabobank, I'm sure.
Yes.
Sounds like, yeah.
And also in our project portfolio, our banks are very aware now. We just went through our project portfolio planning process for next year and starting to see a lot of not just the new technologies, new projects included, but also addressing diversity topics, not just for external, but internally as well.
Yeah, exactly. So that's fantastic. I mean, it's good to see that. One of the things that you shared with me at another discussion we had was that mentorship was really important for you in getting through your career. And so, we have the new person in her career here looking for mentorship, but like tell us a little bit more about your mentorship journey, being mentored. No, Shar.
So mentorship works when you are in that role. I think it's very important when I'm mentoring or being mentored to be able to have a platform to speak to someone who's more knowledgeable and experienced in the industry to give me advice, and also to speak without fear of judgment. But I'll add a twist to that. So in the mentorship, for it to work, there should be clear expectations between the mentor and the mentee, what they want to get out of it.
Yeah. That
And
makes sense.
also, to add another level to that, it's also important that not just with mentoring, but you also add sponsorship to it. I think that's very important, especially as women, that beyond the mentorship, you're also participating in sponsorship activities. So if you see someone who's got the talent.
What the two differences are.
Mentorship exists when you're in the role, and then sponsorship is outside of that relationship. But you think of someone who might be good for a role, and you want to make sure you bring up that person.
Okay.
So
I think that's
how we distinguish it.
clarifying. So, Josie, in terms of what you're doing and studying right now, or you're working on research projects at NYU, right? And you talked a little bit about it's in the healthcare space. What brought you from computer science to data science? Tell us a little bit more about that, because I think that's where I talk to a lot of young people, men and women, and they're like, they don't know how to get into data science. How did you do it?
It's so, that mentorship. It's my mentor
I did not know that
really
was the
did
answer.
Yeah, it just segued right into it. But specifically, I was very interested in bias and algorithmic bias and how we can minimize that in programs, especially in real world fields like healthcare, where they're really impacting like the prediction, like how well we can predict diseases and how well we can treat those diseases that we then predict. It's was something that I was very passionate about, and my mentor came across this lovely program, and I applied, and I got in, and now here I am doing the research with the NYU Medical Center. But I wasn't directly geared towards healthcare. I was very centered around the seed of algorithmic bias and how can I contribute in a way that would be meaningful to me. And
But you started in computer science, you said, right? You
Yeah.
have a degree in computer science, and it's
Yeah.
not necessarily a one-for-one map.
Yeah,
So then I wanted to understand that
from
transition.
computer science to
Yeah, to data science.
It was just always like, and when I was sitting in my classes, while we're talking about these like very abstract or very not very personal entities, it's like this plus this mod this. It's like you're not really interacting with human or data or any real world records. And so I always wondered about that and what it would mean to really get my hands dirty with this data. And I was always just kind of interested. I would ask my professors if there were any like extra readings that I could do with the data in terms of like how this would apply in my real world, like outside the academic realm. So from like computer science and like studying in that academic realm to this real world researching, it was just more of a passion, like a seed where I was like, I know this can be implemented somewhere in a more concrete way.
Right. So I think that's a really interesting approach. It was something you were passionate about,
Yeah, absolutely.
and you decided that's the way you're going to get into it. And so your future plans are to work for, who's your ideal employer?
Myself, but that's my ideal employer.
Oh, you want to be an entrepreneur.
I would like to open my own lab and like just do what I want, but until then, I'm open to any opportunities.
No, we want to hear your ideas, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
It's in healthcare?
No, actually, it's not in healthcare. It's actually in more like social sciences and social justice.
Okay.
But
And using data science to help with that?
absolutely, yeah. I mean,
that'd be
data science is
fantastic.
massive. It's a powerful tool, and I feel
Yeah.
like it's not getting utilized or leveraged in ways that could really help people who are in, like, for example, risk assessment scores in the justice systems. Like, these are types of implementations and programs that are being used in real time that could really make a difference and impact in vulnerable
An
communities.
individual's life.
Yeah.
Right? And then the
so-
whole community, right?
Yeah, it's very important that we can get people who are listening on the ground.
Right. That's great. I mean, I'm thrilled. And
All right, I
wanna-
feel like it took a
I
long
want to
time.
help mentor you through that if possible.
I would love that.
Any one of us would. So, Niki, so back to you. What was your degree in?
My original degree?
Yeah, your university.
I'm a biologist.
Oh, you were the biologist. And so I want people to understand the diversity comes not just from who you're looking at, but our backgrounds, right?
Yes.
We have very different backgrounds, and I know everybody in the audience does as well. Our CTO is a physicist, right? And you just kind of go, oh, how did you turn into
Yes.
this. I think it's just interesting to hear some of these journeys. So how did you get into data science?
So when I was doing my PhD, there was no term data science. So what I was doing, I had millions of observations of individual molecule behaviors, and I was trying to model them. So in some sense, you can say I was doing data science for molecular biology in order to understand population behaviors, the consensus, the average, right? So this is what it all started. As it happened, I wanted to pursue this project on epigenetics, which is modifications on the DNA that are not encoded and they don't pass from generation to generation. I wanted to use this method. My supervisor was like, yes, of course you can, but you will have to see it through. I'm not going to hire a computer scientist. And I was happy to do it. So actually R was the language that facilitated me being able to analyze the data. And with talking with colleagues, that was the first step. And then, of course, I have 7 years of experience as a postdoc after I finished my PhD. Actually working on building bioinformatics pipelines and analyzing this data in large scale and with reproducibility. So that's how it all clicked together for me. I have full disclosure, I was never shy of complex systems. I think I'm seeking complexity. So it was a little bit unavoidable. And when I decided that perhaps biology is a little limiting on the type of data I can get my hands on, I did a data science bootcamp. And for 3 months, and that was it.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic. Hey, so I wanted to open it up for questions in the audience if there are any. Yes? Do we have a microphone that we're going to run up here? Oh, he's got project. I don't know if we have one.
Thank you. So many people talk about diversity and programs at a very top level, but my question is, and anyone on the panel can answer it, what are you, anybody on the panel, doing to eliminate or to make middle managers aware of subconscious biases, like ancestral energies, like the biases of maybe someone of another race or that is subconscious, because sometimes we may not even be aware of that because we inherit these biases on a subconscious level from our ancestors. So whether it be race, whether it be socioeconomic, whether it be a certain behavior, what are people and organizations actually doing to eliminate these subconscious biases and make middle managers aware of it? Because diversity is great when you talk about it, but what are, yeah.
Go for it.
Okay,
I think Erin has an opinion.
I'll go for it. That's a great question. So 2 things. I would say for me in practice is when I was more hands-on leading projects, I lay down the rules of engagement in my team. So on the get-go, that will not be tolerated, and there will be consequences. And if you do not agree with that, then maybe you shouldn't play in my team. But it's not that harsh, but I think laying down the law, be very clear about the rules of engagement in our team helps to set the tone of how the team will operate. And also, as a manager, part of our training, there's a lot of the unconscious bias training that we're all undergoing now. And I mean, it's just a daily, everyday thing that you just need to be very aware of. Because I don't want to alienate everybody and very conscious about people are coming to my team coming from different backgrounds and also with their biases, but have something to contribute. And my job is to lead them and extract the very best out of each and every one and make sure that they are aligned with the mission. Because otherwise, if I cannot manage that and lead them, we will not achieve our targets.
Excellent. Erin, I think
You saw me thinking.
I'm putting you on the spot because I know you have an opinion on this. What did you do at H2O?
Well, so I think the thing about unconscious biases is that you have to not shame people about it, because I think when you sort of poke at people and say, oh, you said that, it was sexist or something like that, people a lot of the times don't really realize it. And by people, I mostly mean men, but women also have a lot of unconscious biases as well. Like it's maybe a little bit more unconscious, let's say. So I think, one thing is just to sort of not introduce shame into the equation. And I think if you're someone who notices these things, I think as women we notice them, but there's a lot of male allies who will notice things as well. And so it's important just to point them out in a non-confrontational way. And as Niki said earlier, like everybody has sort of like gaps that need to be filled in, and that's just, let's, not necessarily make anybody feel bad about it. It's just, we all have gaps and they need to be essentially filled in. And I think that's by education, and whether or not that's some formal unconscious bias training, I think it's just a constant education process that we have to do with our peers, and that we'll probably always be doing to some degree, but maybe it gets more and more less of a burden over time.
Maggie, jump in.
Sure, yeah. I think the panel here might be actually itself an overfitted model of representativeness, thinking for 2 seconds. But I think
we have one outlier here.
From an epistemological perspective, meaning how we look at how society conveys information inside itself, and specifically when we look at AI system and how we're sourcing data for AI systems, and you're looking at the research methods. And I'm going to put the philosophical and sociological to the side and just look at the systems that we have. So the kind of information that people are signaling, whether it's companies, whether it's boardrooms, whether it's engineered products, whether it's applications, whether it's UX, whether it's even the generation of data, all of these systems are, in fact, I think, going through a sort of a replatforming exercise. So the awareness itself is much higher. So I think the noise is being cleaned. Will that be flushed out sociologically? That's a different conversation. But I think at the way the economics of today and the world we're in today is it's already doing that. And we can go into the myriad of reasons for why. The second thing is in terms of, to your point about middle management, I think never before in my entire 20 years since I began in this profession, I started in a lab, having to get access to a mainframe to build the models because nobody would share with me at 2 a.m. until 2 a.m. till today. Things have evolved quite a bit in terms of equity and what the experience of equity is like. I'll give you an example. If there's me in a queue and there's my mentee who might present as a young white man or young Asian man, but he, she, they come from a different background, they might get a chance to go ahead of me because I am, in this case, the advantage. So the calculus of how these platforms, these social systems, and even the conversations we're having is changing. And then finally, at the technical level, like I'm sure you can speak to it, the actual algorithms, the actual products financial companies are building for machine learning systems, whether it's chatbots, whether it's FICO scores, whether it's all those kinds of credit scores, those types of systems are also evolving, and there's understanding at a widespread level the historic ingredients that we've put in at a machine learning data science level, and the ones that are coming out, the signal and noise haven't been mapped correctly, and the way we've processed those systems haven't been correct, and there's a recorrection on that, I would say. Maybe I'm taking too heavily of a technical approach, but I am seeing that.
My answer to you would be back to Shar. Actually, it's a combination answer. Yeah, so I think it starts at the top. Yeah, so I think it starts at the top. I think each company, we get to make a decision of where we want to work, right? So it starts with your leadership team, and you can almost tell right away, right? So, for example, when I walked in to meet Shri for the first time, and I think Erin would agree, you just felt so equal, welcome. The whole company's like that. You can feel it. It's in the culture. It's cultural, and I don't think you can train people, but you've got to really kind of embrace a culture of just fairness, right? And equality. And I think that's what Shri has built at H2O, and I wish we could replicate that for so many companies, because I've been at other companies where it's not like that. And I felt it, and you know it. And then you have, let's go try and have, training classes. Let's go teach the managers that treat people differently, or respect diversity. I think you gotta look at it from within, and I think it starts with that leader at the top. And I've worked for great leaders. I think Shri is one of them, that you feel that leadership at the top where it's like, we're all equal. So I would encourage people to, you vote with your feet, and you go to the place where you're gonna see that. And it's doable. There are a lot of men and women out there that treat you like that, and it's about respect. So that's kind of my opinion, because I can now just, I can go where I want, right? I'm the boss of me. You're the boss of you. You're going to go where you want next. And I would just advise, if it's not a culture that's respecting you, leave it. It's not gonna work out. Now you can try and change it, but that's a hard road. Just my opinion. Niki, you were about to say something?
Oh, no. I first of all, let me agree of how wonderful the culture is in H2O. And as you say, you vote with your feet. Mm-hmm. And I believe, if I am allowed to put a little bit of a parenthesis to that, technology companies offer this paradox, however. You want to be in a company that is going to promote your career and is going to be one of the top companies, and perhaps that's when the choice is limited. Mm-hmm. So I do think that at the same time as voting with our feet, there is something to be said about cultivating systemic change, and panels like that is one way to do it. I'm thinking being in a culture, you mentioned culture, perhaps being in a company that cultivates not like openness, not necessarily diversity, not necessarily equality, but perhaps the bare minimum would be like find a company that cultivates openness and cultivates...
Yeah. I think that's more to you're right. I would agree with that. So I'm with you.
I'm going to give a plug for Intel for a second, because
they're a great leader in this area.
We're I think #1 on many of the social responsibility and ethics factors, and for me that's a massive data point. I live in Silicon Valley. There's no shortage of social media companies that reach out to folks like Erin and myself and Niki, but we choose to be where we are because the management itself is inculcated. I personally have an amazing organization that I'm a part of. My managers are supportive all the way through. I think they're probably somewhere here. But we also partner, the ecosystems also that you foster. So all of these ladies, myself and all of us will probably have drinks and become friends. So the ecosystem matters, yeah.
All right, another question from the audience? Yes. By the way, I don't think there's an easy answer, or one. So we'd love to chat.
Hello, ladies. Great discussion so far. I actually have a question, and it's for anybody in the panel. I've spoken to Ingrid briefly some time ago. For someone like myself who has been in the IT industry for 20 years, I actually have an interest in breaking into the machine learning, data science space. What advice would you give me? Basically, I've been at this for the past 2 months. I've just been doing my own self-study online. This is my second, I guess, attendance to one of these conferences. So what would you give me? What ideas, tips, any resources out there? I'm kind of like giving myself 6 months. Is that a realistic goal?
Coming into the field new and retraining yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I've got
Josie.
quite a bit of technical experience?
I mean, I feel like the best way to learn anything is just diving right into it. So if there's a small project, if there's like, oh, I want to make something that predicts the weather tomorrow, it's like starting there, that will teach you a lot. And it'll also teach you where your blind spots are. Okay. And so it's like, okay, well, I don't know this, and then maybe that's where I'll focus harder on the next project. But like just getting in there, because just studying and getting those little toolkits, it's like putting them into practice is where you really start learning stuff.
So does that mean I should look for like data sets out there and capture those? Yeah,
getting data sets, or even, well, yeah, that's a shaky road, but that's also a learning experience, I feel like. But getting data sets, making your own data sets, like all of those things are part of the learning journey, I feel like. And like if you really want to take, leap steps and those jumping steps, you can do every single part if you want.
Thanks for that.
I'll make a suggestion. So I don't know what organization that you're in, but this is a familiar question I'm asked by a lot of technologists. So what I advise to them is, if you're in an organization, like for instance in a bank, is
I am.
You are?
Yeah.
Well, here you go. Here's the advice. Keep your eyes and ears open, not just to what's important to the C-suite, but the most important part of the C-suite, which is your customer. And I would frame that as being aware of your strategy and the types of initiatives that your organization might want to undertake to volunteer that. Present it to them as a problem and an opportunity and volunteer to be part of that. Or maybe even start a movement in your own organization, because I'm sure you're not the only one thinking like this, so why don't you spearhead it? And you're in the right place. Because like you, over a year ago, I didn't even know what AI, blockchain, IoT was, but I'm a very curious person, wanted to do something different, stay relevant in my field, so do it, just do it.
I think also, and we're going to have to wrap up here in a few minutes, the next panel coming up is the Calgo Grand Master panel, where they're going to share how they got started and what data sets to look at, and just, as Josie said, just jump right in. Right? Or volunteer to do a project with somebody else in another organization, in your organization, because you have that flexibility. And it's a good way to get started without having to switch jobs or go find another job or get a degree or something like that. Any other thoughts on that?
I will reinforce the idea of have a pet project. It also helps with applying for jobs.
And if you're looking to make...
Erin's going to say that.
You should join the meetup called Women in Machine Learning and Data Science. There's a chapter in New York.
It's big.
And it's quite big. Yeah, check it out.
You should all join that chapter here.
And Our Ladies or Pi Ladies, if you like either one of those languages.
I would say if you're doing a career pivot, translating all the skills and capabilities you have for your next profession is probably the most important. So to everyone's point, pick that project, but also don't throw away the skills that you have. So think about who it is that cares tremendously about data engineering and the infrastructure orchestration around that. That's going to be a tremendous area of opportunity. We're just at the dawn of this wave of AI. So there's a ton of opportunity coming, and in the next 6-9 months, who knows, we might all be working for you. So.
All right, on that note, I was going to say the opportunity in AI machine learning for everyone in this room that's watching live on the live stream, and men or women just graduating, middle school, what have you, the opportunity is tremendous. So I just want to encourage everybody to embrace this and transform the world by using this new technology. And I want to thank our panelists for joining us here today. We're going to move the program along and get over to the Calgo Grand Master panel. Thank you all.